back to Pseudo Gameplay TV for another character analysis for Marvel's Ultimate Alliance 3. Now again, we have covered basically every character available in the game, and we are now into the paid DLC characters, the second of which, who is obtainable, is none other than Blade. Now Blade is quite the iconic character from Marvel Comics. And he's also one that, despite his appearance, he's not human, or at least not entirely. Now, Blade first appeared in Marvel Comics in issue number 10 of the Tomb of Dracula series, which released in July of 1973. And Blade, he's quite the complex and complicated character. So, as I mentioned, he's not entirely human. He's a race that's considered, or it's called a Dampier. And what a Dampier is a hybrid between a vampire and a human. Now, most standard Dampiers are resulted of a male vampire mating with a human female. And that is the case of Blade, as his mother is where the human part of his ancestry comes from. Though, according to sources, there are some instances where the opposite has been known to occur. Now, due to his Dampier nature, he has a couple of heightened senses and abilities, and his capabilities include, but are not limited to, being a master martial artist, being a skilled swordsman and marksman, being highly knowledgeable of vampiric lore, mainly because he kind of abhors them and wants to prevent other people from being like himself. He also has superhuman strength, speed, agility, stamina, enhanced senses, as well as an accelerated healing factor, immunity to the bites of vampires, and the immunity to vampiric hypnosis. He has slowed aging and the ability to sense supernatural creatures. So he's quite the worthy adversary if you are one of the unknown or creature of the night. Now, the abilities that Blade has access to in this game are interesting, as most of them are based off of melee or extended melee type attacks, with one particular exception. So his first attack is the Spinning Swords, where Blade performs a jumping, spinning cut, and this is an attack that you can hold to charge up and use the left joystick to move about as you charge and use the attack. His second attack, which he has, is the High Stakes, where he fires silver spikes in the direction that the character is facing. This is another attack that you can hold to charge and use the L stick to move about as you charge and use the attack. Now, Blade uses silver because that is one of the main weaknesses to vampires specifically, though in this game we're not really fighting vampires directly. It's the main weapon that he has in his arsenal, due to that being the main type of villain that he comes in contact with. His third attack, which he has, is the Bleeding Edge, where he throws his glaive bouncing off of enemies in the vicinity of where he's thrown it. This is another one that you can hold to charge as it bounces around, and you can move around so you're not completely helpless or immobile as you're using this attack. The fourth and final attack, which he has, is the Off the Chain. Now, this is where a tethered blade is swung in the area around Blade, and that has an extended area of effect type attack to it. This can be held to charge, and you can use the L stick to move about as you charge, and again, use the attack. So, very interesting, unique attacks to Blade specifically. Now, the team synergy that we have set up today doesn't quite fully maximize Blade's synergies. There was really only one that I wasn't able to fill in this particular circumstance, but he doesn't need increased health from the synergy that is missing. The rest of the synergies which he gains are accomplished by having Wolverine, Punisher, and Scarlet Witch as parts of the team. So let's quickly showcase what you need to do in order to unlock Blade, and then we'll jump into a rift and showcase his gameplay in action. All right, so once we've transitioned over to this DLC menu, the expansion menu, we will need to navigate to the Gauntlet area in order to showcase what attack or what is required to unlock Blade and make him usable to you. Now this is similar to the previous quest, has 4 different stages where you will sequentially need to take your desired team through the fights, and the last fight you will unlock Blade and be able to use him as a character. So the first fight is a fight against Kingpin. In this fight, the quirks or benefits that are added is abilities and synergies do extra damage, but basic and EX attacks are less effective. And the EP is regained by attacking. Energy attacks receive heightened strength, so do keep that in mind as you're building your team for this fight. The second fight, which you'll need to complete, is defeating 25 enemies, where friends and foes alike deal increasing damage over time. Projectiles are strengthened here, and it is a 3-minute completion. Now, you may be thinking, hey, 25 enemies isn't that bad. Well, the 25 enemies do tend to be some of the stronger ones who have those stagger bars that you need to deplete. So damage is muted a little bit, as it would be just with standard grunts. The nice thing is after completing this portion of the quest, you will receive a portion of your HP back for each character you have on your team. The third fight that you will need to complete is defeating the Ultron Sentries. Now this is, if I remember correctly, the Avengers Tower top fight, or that as you're progressing through the Avengers Tower. That's the fight that you will need to complete. So it's nothing that you're not familiar with from the main story quest. Friend and foe alike deal increasing damage in this fight as well. Melee attacks are strengthened in this portion of the quest, and this does have a 6-minute timer that you will need to complete. The fourth and final quest is one of the timed attack quests, but you do receive increases to the time which you are allotted as you defeat enemies that you come across. Additionally, piercing attacks have strengthened effectiveness, and upon completing this quest, you will unlock any awards that you may have unlocked during just the standard playthrough, as well as receiving Blade as a usable character. But now that you know what you need to do in order to unlock him, let's showcase what he looks like once you finally have him available on your team. Alright, so right off the bat, we will note that Blade has a double jump, and his falling aerial attack is actually a gun blast, presumably with silver, or it's that silver stake that you can see in the ground shortly after using the attack. Now his melee type attacks involves 4 slashes with his twin blades that he unleashes directly in front of him, and the fourth of those hits, if it does not knock out the character, it will knock them down, providing they're a grunt. Now his heavy attack is a spinning, slashing attack that he does as he lunges forward, and it does somewhat sweep enemies in as it's being used. Now his first attack, which he has, the spinning swords, is an attack where he will rise up and sweep characters into the effect. So it is kind of nice for dealing damage to the smaller grunt enemies that get bunched up. Now his second attack, the high stakes, he will charge up that shot that you are familiar with from his heavy attack and then fire out that silver stake. And you can charge up this attack as well as walk about as you have it charged, so you're not helpless and immobile while you're readying this attack. His third attack, which he has, the Bleeding Edge, this is an attack that will send his glaive bouncing out, and as you charge it, similar to the other ones, you can walk about a bit, but it does come back around kind of in a boomerang type fashion after a short period of time. This does use vast amounts of the EP gauge from Blade, so it's not as efficient as you may like it to be. So unless you have it fully leveled up where it takes less of the EP, I would recommend avoiding that type of attack being used. Now, his fourth and final attack I feel is one of the best in terms of area of effect use. He will charge up this glaive attack, which he swings around him. He can be knocked out of it by the larger enemies that tend to charge forward, but it does decent amounts of damage to the characters in his immediate vicinity, though the characters don't really like it, so the bigger ones that don't get staggered as easily will do everything they can to knock you out of it if they notice that you're using it too frequently, or at least that's from my experience. Now, his extreme attack, you do want to kind of stand afar from the characters you would use it against, but it does deplete their stagger gauge, and then you can follow up with a myriad of different attacks. The off-the-chain attack is quite good for a follow-up there, because any character that is not knocked out will most likely, if not definitely, have their stagger bar depleted, unless it's one of the really big, heavy bosses. But you do have to keep in mind that it does have a bit of an extended range where it's made effective, so you can't just use it at your leisure. Now, his attacks are effective at best, and it's important to remember that most of them do have some ramp up to them. But the ones that you can feel most safe spamming are the spinning swords and the off-the-chain type attack. The Bleeding Edge, again, it does rapidly deplete the EP bar, so it will leave you in a world of hurt if you're needing to use it to take out, or if you're needing to use your MP attacks to take out the characters in your vicinity. But Blade is a highly effective melee use character with some added ranged capability, so he's certainly a lot of fun to use once you've unlocked him from the expansion Rift. Well, thanks again for watching and for your support on this series. We'll be back on Monday with our third character of these paid DLCs, which will be Moon Knight, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss that video. We'll be back with more videos throughout the rest of this week, but until then, thanks again for your time, and I hope you have an absolutely fantastic day.